Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Right Reason, the show where we reason rightly. Our host of the show, because I'm just the guy who asks the questions, our host of the show is Dr. Charles Rice, Professor Emeritus, University of Notre Dame Law School. How you doing, Doc?
Good.
Good?
Glad to be here with the popcorn.
With the popcorn. Yeah, we're getting a little thing because some viewers have commented, people have commented, boy, things seem very casual and relaxed in this. We're sitting in our Church Militant.tv parlor, our little beautiful fire going over there. We have popcorn, you have coffee, I have my Dr. Pepper here. We wear wonderful sweaters and all kinds of bright clothing.
That's right.
Because the Summa, which is what we're talking about this season, has St. Thomas Aquinas' Summa Theologica, this big, huge set here, has this reputation of being big and heavy, and it deals with heavy topics, but it's pretty simple, really, isn't it? When you get down to it,
it's clear.
Yeah,
That's right.
Clear. So, we just like to we want to present everything in a very casual, relaxed way. So, if you happen to hear Dr. Rice answering a few times and his mouth sounds like it's full of popcorn, that's because it is. And we have to give a big shout out here to Mike Seidel, one of our editors who actually makes the popcorn.
He's very good.
You have to know, there's a little backstage chat here. Before Dr. Rice said he would come this season, he'd said, "Oh, I'll come and do another season, but you have to have that popcorn ready for me."
That's right. Yeah.
So I told Mike and said, "Hey, Mike, you got to have the popcorn ready."
Olympic class popcorn.
It's best popcorn.
Yeah,
Best popcorn on earth, it really is. Anyway, so as we look around the world today, Doctor, there is, I think, what you could call sort of a practical atheism. Most people would say they believe in some kind of God or something or other. They have some intuitive sense that there's something out there beyond them that's responsible for everything. But that's about where it ends when it comes to the practice of that belief. They are practically, in practice, they live like atheists, like someone who doesn't acknowledge God. Thomas talks about we can know God. We don't need to, this isn't just some speculative thing, right? This is we can know God.
Yeah.
And he gives 5 ways, right?
Right. Well, the first thing you got to look at is that Thomas says that the existence of God of itself, in itself, is self-evident. Now, self-evident means you have one term and the other, and if you put them out there, you know that it's true. Mm-hmm. The example he uses is circle and round. Yeah. All right? We know what a circle is. We know what round is. The statement, "a circle is round," is self-evident. Mm-hmm. If somebody says, "Well, prove it," I say, "I can't."
Yeah.
You either buy it or you check out of the rational universe. Right? But we don't know everything about God. Yeah. And the existence of God is self-evident in itself because the essence of God is to exist. That is the essence of God.
Mm-hmm. As he tells Moses in the burning
I am
bush.
who I am.
I am.
Right? Yeah. And who told you? I am told you. Mm-hmm. All right? And the point is that it's not self-evident to us because we don't know, everything about God. So we have to prove it by reasoning. Mm-hmm. And we show it. And Thomas does that. Does it by the uncaused cause, the prime mover, standard of perfection. Let's just look at 2 of them.
Okay.
All right?
First of all, say what all 5 of them are, since we won't deal extensively with all 5.
Right.
But.
The first one is, he's talking about, the prime mover. Mm-hmm. That there has to be an unmoved prime mover. Otherwise, you'd have an endless series of movers.
Now, when we say move, he doesn't mean just
everything that is moved is moved by something else. Well, it's like a dog chasing his tail. You have to have, in the beginning,
one of them
mover.
has to be first.
That has to be unmoved.
Right.
All right. Same thing with causation. Mm-hmm. Every effect has a cause, and that effect has a cause, and so on. And ultimately, you have to have an uncaused cause. Mm-hmm. All right. The third is the necessity thing, which we'll get into. Mm-hmm. Then he talks about the standard of perfection.
Right.
And we say that's good coffee, it's better coffee, it's the best coffee. The fact that we have standards of perfection means there must be an ultimate standard of perfection.
Sure.
And the 5th is design, which we will also get into in some detail.
Okay.
All right? So this is important. Thomas puts the proof of the existence of God first in the Summa, right? And it is first. But it's appropriate for us to consider it in terms of everything we've been talking about, because they come down to all these questions we've been talking about come down to the question, is there really a God? Does God really exist? And faith and reason, right? You have faith and reason are both ways of knowing. What Thomas gives us is the assurance that not only is it reasonable to believe in the existence of God, it is unreasonable not to.
Correct.
All right? How do you do that? Well, one of the things you know is a self-evident thing, is the principle of sufficient reason. All right? And this is a pen, all right? I drop it. Why did it drop? The first reaction will be the law of gravity. No, not the law of gravity. I opened my fingers. That's why it dropped.
Right.
Now suppose I
Yeah,
drop.
the first thing that did is you opened your fingers.
That's correct.
Then, number two, the law of gravity kicked in.
That's exactly right.
Right.
And I opened my fingers. I sent a message to my fingers, and so on. If somebody asked me, they said, "Why did that pen drop?" And I said, "No reason." Would you believe it? No.
Nope.
I mean, if they say, "Well, what made that pen drop?" And I say, "Nothing." All right. Would you believe it?
Yeah.
No. You know that something had to cause it. Now think about this. When we're talking about God, how do you know, just using your head, that there always had to be an eternal being? Eternal means always existed. That's not the same as immortal.
Right.
God is immortal. We are immortal
Yeah, it
because
means
we are spiritual.
once we come into existence,
That's right.
we go on forever.
But how do you know there always had to be an eternal being? And St. Thomas says because every effect has to have a cause.
It's
all right?
necessary.
And if there was ever a time when there was absolutely nothing, there could never be anything.
Right.
Now, if you think about that, just walking around the street, you might get hit by a truck. But
Let's dwell on that for a second, because it's
Yeah.
one of those things. You know, I actually got a text from a young fellow who's at a camp a couple days ago, and he said he was discussing things with a kid who says he's an atheist, and he goes, "Well, how can you prove there's a God?" And he texted me, this good Catholic kid, and he goes, "Help me with this discussion. What can I tell to him?" And I said, "Well, all you have to do is just say, how could there not be one?"
That's right. I mean, John Paul put the question, why is there something rather than nothing? And the answer is given by Mary Tyler Moore in The Sound of Music. All right, remember that scene down at the
Julie
lake?
Andrews.
Julie Andrews.
Right,
Sorry,
right.
yeah, Julie Andrews.
Did they do a remake?
I'm dating myself. Julie Andrews. The guy proposes to her. All right, and they're down by the lake, and she thinks that's a pretty good idea, so she breaks into song. All right,
Which happens every day.
yeah. So what is she singing? She's singing, somewhere in my childhood I must have done something good.
Yeah.
Why is this happening to me? I must have done something good for this to happen to me. Punchline, nothing comes from nothing, nothing ever could.
Right.
All right? Now that is not, we reason to that, but it's built on the self-evident principle that every effect has a cause.
Sure.
And that's why you walk around and think about that.
Yeah.
It'll blow your mind. I mean, we know it absolutely. There always had to be an eternal being, and we can know a lot about what that being is and what he does for a living. All right.
Do you think when people say, wait a minute, there was never a time there couldn't be something. If
Yeah.
there was a time where there was nothing, then there could never be
anything.
Because where would the anything come from?
That's exactly right.
If something could spring into existence out of nothing,
Right.
well, then why isn't it happening now?
That's right. And we know it. We know it doesn't happen.
It can't happen.
Because of, it's self-evident that every effect has to have a cause. It can't be its own cause because then it would predate itself. All right?
Right.
So everything has to have a cause. And question then is, if there was ever a time when there was absolutely nothing, how could there ever be anything?
Right.
What would cause it?
Right.
You know, where would it come from? So
You
that's
get sort of caught in a circular backwards argument.
well.
But
I mean, that's where you say, well, wait a minute, that's unreasonable not to accept that, and then we can move on, as we'll see in another session. We can move on, and we can know, for example, that God is simple. Now, simple doesn't mean that
simpleton.
he's a Cubs fan.
Or a Southern Cal fan.
So, I'm with you. All right. Now, simple means spiritual.
Right.
Has no parts. And the simple, the obvious question is, wait a minute, if God is made of matter, where'd the matter come from?
Right.
And who put it together? All right. And we can go on to reason to other attributes of God. The other way that Thomas uses that we can talk about is design. See, and design is different because the proof from design is not founded on the principle of sufficient reason, which is self-evident, although the existence of God is not self-evident. The proof from design is founded on the extremely high probability that, for example, if you were walking on the beach, and you and I were walking on the beach, and we saw, printed in the sand down by the water, "Go Irish," all right? And you looked at me, you said, "Oh, look at the message the waves wrote on the sand."
By accident.
Could it have happened? Yes. Is it possible for that to have happened? Yes. Would you believe it? No. See, and so then you get into the question, okay, you think all this stuff came about by accident? The human eye, the whole process of giving birth and nursing, and that gives, that helps the mother recover, and so on and so forth. The intricate aspect of all these things, it is extraordinary how you could see all this and still not believe in God.
Yeah.
But
it's even interesting on the laws of the universe,
right.
and not necessarily the laws. You drop something, it falls here on Earth. That, so much pressure in the atmosphere and all that, but the undergirding principles which give life to those laws.
Right.
Why, when you drop something, does it fall? We know that if you drop it, it falls.
Right.
But why? And you say, well, because of gravity. Well, no. What keeps the law of gravity in place?
That's exactly right. And that introduces the whole question of design and the personal God.
Exactly.
I mean, one of the reasons why St. Thomas says that God is a person is because he is a designer.
Right.
And what's the first act that you have when you design something? You're going to build a birdhouse, all right? And what's the first thing you do? You visualize it.
Right.
You look at that birdhouse in your imagination, really.
Exactly.
And it doesn't exist in the real world. But you can have a sauna, you can have an escalator and all that stuff, all right? And that's the first act of designing. Henry Ford got the idea of the Model T, that kind of thing. Thomas says, well, God is a person because one of the reasons we know that is because he's a designer. That it's completely unreasonable to believe that all this stuff happens by accident. We say, well, yeah, what about evil? Whole nother question.
Yeah.
All right? Evil is not a thing in itself. It's
Right.
simply the absence of good.
Right.
And then you're getting into the whole question of the fall and all the rest of it, physical evil, moral evil. And the principle that Thomas accepts and that is clearly teaching the church is that nothing happens except by the ordaining or permitting will of God.
Exactly.
And as Maximilian Kolbe said, St. Maximilian Kolbe said, God permits everything in view of a greater blessing.
Yes.
So that's the kind of thing you have to get into in terms of the problem of evil. But basic question is, hey, it's totally unreasonable not to think, first of all, that there always had to be an eternal being.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, that the human brain, didn't come into existence by chance.
Yeah.
And that there's a designer here. So that's where we are.
That's where we are. It is, it's profound because of the topic,
Yeah.
but it's also simple.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, truth is simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is. It's clear and it's simple. It might be difficult to figure out, or to reason to, or maybe even a better way to say it would be to articulate it.
Right.
But because, it's like explain the ocean. The ocean's a pretty simple thing. There it is, a big, huge mass of water.
Yeah.
But you can talk about it and
Right.
articulate it for, centuries if you wanted
Right,
to.
right.
So, Dr. Rice, thank you very much.
Very good.
Dr. Rice sitting here proving there's a God.
Yep.
Right here, you heard it here. It's pretty simple. He's the first person in the history of the world to actually prove there's a God. Is that right?
That's first.
No, that would be Thomas Aquinas here, not even him.
Yeah.
Listen, we're going to be back next week with, we're going to talk about a very interesting topic called the image of God, the Imago Dei. And we get this from the book of Genesis, where God says, "Let us make man in our own image." What does that mean? The image and likeness of God. And a lot of people get hung up on this, and Dr. Rice is going to set
We're going to get into
on
the attributes of God.
and
too.
the attributes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
We
we
got a
put
lot
all
of
those
stuff to
things
talk
together.
about. Show about God.
Yeah.
Show about God.
Yeah.
God bless you all. Michael Voris for ChurchMilton.tv, Right Reason, and Dr. Charlie Rice. We'll see you next week on Right Reason. God bless you.